session. We do our live forums. So let's make sure. And we are live streaming on several of our platforms. So welcome. My name is Camelia Collier. I sit on the board here of this very, very prestigious organization. And we are very excited to have some esteemed guests on tonight. I do want to, before we get deep into discussion, just want to remind everyone and introduce many of the folks here that, excuse me, Be The Now is a 501 C3 organization, so we cannot directly endorse any candidate. However, we are ecstatic to have those that we have on tonight with our upcoming election in Georgia. So for all of our Georgia citizens that are on the line, I'm sure this will be great information for you all. Ask your questions. The chat is live, and all of our guests have already been excited and prepared to be asked these questions. And so this is the stuff that people say they don't get to learn and know. Here they are, proof positive that they are here to answer questions and be in their communities and earn your vote. Those of you that are not in Georgia, you're going to get some great information about how there are other implications on where it fits for you. And we'll hear more about that as well. So for the sake of time and for just all of the breadth of knowledge and information that we're probably going to get out of these candidates, to give them all equal time, and also for you all to get your questions answered, we're going to jump right in. So I want to introduce a young lady who doesn't need introductions, but definitely deserves it. She is the founder and president of Be The Now. Birthed this during quite an interesting time in the pandemic. Long time coming, in such a timely and needed movement. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this vision and to be a part of the footprint that Be The Now is making nationally. So that being said, I want to introduce Mrs. Cheryl Neal.
Thank you so much, Kay. I really appreciate you. Just for those of you who don't know, Coach Kay, as we call her, she's out of Dallas, Texas, and she's a very successful businesswoman. She trains thousands and thousands of individuals across the country, and she's extremely busy, but she takes time out of her schedule to volunteer her time. And thank God she's part of the board for this cause. And so I really appreciate everything that she does and all the other board members do to help Be The Now be the organization that it is. So thank you so much, Kay. And as Kay stated, my name is Cheryl Neal, founder of Be The Now. Be The Now was birthed in 2020 during a time that was really dark. And I feel like it was necessary because when we had all the senseless killings, the riots, the marches going on, I would talk to individuals and say, you know, this upcoming election is very important. And some individuals would say, you know what, I don't know if I'm voting. And I just couldn't understand that at all. It just took me aback. And at that time, I knew I had to do something. And so went to a very good friend. We just had a discussion. We had several calls, and Be The Now was birthed. So thank everybody for coming on the call. And if you have not, please go to our website, BeTheNow.org. Check us out. I mean, we literally have a plethora of information on there in terms of education, you know, and information, you know, on how to register to vote, your polling location, all of that. So thank you again for joining. Now, I am extremely excited because with these upcoming primary elections going on, a lot of people are trying to figure out, who do I vote for? You know, what positions are up? And so we all felt it was necessary to have this forum today. And so we have four amazing candidates on that I can't wait to introduce. We're going to jump right in. The first candidate is State Representative Derek Jackson, who is running for Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. We have State Representative Donna McLeod, who is running for Congress. 7th district, correct? We have D. Dawkins Hagler, who is running for Secretary of State on the line. We also have State Representative Shelley Hutchinson, who is running for her current position in Snellville and Lawrenceville, right? So we're extremely excited. Each of these individuals have a long resume, very long resume, and I want to make sure that I don't leave anything out. So what I would like to do to get started is to ask each of them to discuss their resumes with them, and then also why they are running for the current position that they're running for. So I'm gonna start with State Representative Derek Jackson on why he's running for Lieutenant Governor. Ms. Jones, can you unmute Mr. Jackson?
Okay. Here we go. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Be The Now. Thank you all for having us this evening. And you're right. I mean, we're in the final stretch these last 7 days. I am State Representative Derek Jackson, and I've been blessed and honored to serve the 64th House District these last 6 years. I'm a husband. Well, first of all, let me go way, way back. First, I'm a God-fearing man. I'm a husband and I'm a father. My wife and I, we have 7 amazing children. And we have a 2-year-old grandson that keeps us all young. The reason why I start there is because my candidacy for Lieutenant Governor is all about family. Family is everything. And if we have not learned anything these last 2.5, maybe 3 years now since we've been dealing with this pandemic, it's been centered on family. And when you think about family from a Lieutenant Governor perspective, you got to think about healthcare, specifically women's health and children's health. Yes, men's health is important too, but women's health in Georgia is ranked number 47 out of 50 states. Our healthcare is ranked number 43 out of 50. We have over 70 counties without an OBGYN, over 60 counties without a pediatrician. We're ranked in the top 5 when it comes down to mortality, maternal mortality. No woman should be threatened to lose their life while trying to bring life into this world. And it's 3 to 4 times even greater for African-American women. And so we have to have a lieutenant governor that's going to think about healthcare, but it doesn't stop there. You also have to have a lieutenant governor think about public education. We have 1.8 million future leaders in our school system, but the quality of our education should not be based on the proximity to Atlanta. Our education should prepare our students, regardless of zip code, regardless if they're in urban, suburban, or rural, for the 21st century. And then the last point is this. I'm a retired naval officer after 22 years in the military, 10 years in corporate America, and 6 years as a state legislator. That's 38 years of leadership, service, and experience. That's unmatched by the other 8 candidates. So I've been fighting for our democracy since 1983, 38 years. And when you think about our democracy, you got to think about voting rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights before it was even known as LGBTQ. You have to have a champion that's going to be ready on day 1 to preside over the state Senate. And if need be, if ever the governor is incapacitated or removed from office, that lieutenant governor need to be ready for day 1. And that person is me, based on my leadership, based on my character, based on my focus around family.
Thank you so much, State Representative Jackson. Now we're going to go to State Representative Donna McLeod, who's running for Congress. Ms. Jones, can you please unmute? Okay. Donna,
thank you, Mrs. Neal, and thank you, Be The Now. What an awesome name, by the way. Thank you guys so much for having me. I am State Representative Donna McLeod. I was born in Jamaica. I grew up in Ontario, Canada, and I moved to Georgia back in 1998. I am a mom, I'm a grandmother, I'm an engineer, a chemical engineer. I'm a small business owner, and I started a nonprofit organization that has registered over 30,000 people in Gwinnett County. When I first started this journey, I never thought I was going to be in elected office, to be honest. I was just doing the civic responsibility stuff and becoming a citizen in 2012. I actually was the national director for voter outreach of Black Women for Obama in 2012, and I was not a citizen at the time. Didn't turn a citizen until the end, actually after President Obama's election in 2012. I started with that campaign in 2008 from the beginning. When nobody thought that he could become president, I knew he could become president. So I've been on the ground doing the grassroots organizing for years. And I decided to run for office after speaking with Representative Bill McLean, who's now Dr. McLean. He convinced me to run for office, and I ran. And I actually ran in a gerrymandered district because they had just gerrymandered district in 2015. And so in 2016, when I ran, I lost by 222 votes. I ran, I did in 2017, we didn't stop. We actually canvassed that entire year and made sure that we got the 2,100 people that didn't vote. When I lost, it was only 222 votes. And so running that underground, I guess, canvassing during 2017, 2018, we won by almost over 4,000 votes. And in 2020, I was reelected to the Georgia House by almost 8,000 votes. And I am running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District because we gave one Congresswoman an opportunity to do the work on behalf of the people she serves in the 7th Congressional District, and she failed. She didn't feel that, I guess she felt that pouring concrete and asphalt was more important than the Build Back Better, which is a human infrastructure to get folks universal pre-K, paid family leave. And we have another Congresswoman in the race who basically does not live in the 7th Congressional District. I live there. I've lived there for 22 years. I've been doing the work, registering those 30,000 plus people, getting Sunday voting for our constituents, having extended early voting. So I know the 7th, and the 7th knows me. I've never thought about that I was running against anyone in particular. I'm running to serve the 7th Congressional District because I know the 7th, and the 7th knows me. And that's why I'm running, because everyone should get representation. And I am also running on voting rights because everybody thinks we have a right to vote. Technically, we have an ability to vote because the Constitution only gives white men who own land the right to vote. Everybody else is an amendment to the Constitution with an ability to vote. And so that's why we have to be very, very cognitive about ensuring that the right to vote actually becomes a right for everyone in this country. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative McLeod. Next up is State Representative D. Dawkins Hagler.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I do apologize for being in the car, but I am on heavy campaign mode, and so just bear with me. And so I am D. Dawkins Hagler, the candidate for Georgia Secretary of State, your candidate. A little bit about myself. I am from South Carolina originally. I've been in Georgia 25 years. I attended South Carolina State University, where I met my husband, Colonel David Hagler Jr. He's stationed at Fort Gordon in Augusta. We have 4 children. They range in age from 21 to 30 and 2 grandchildren. And so I went there for a bachelor's in political science, but my background is actually human resource management and executive nonprofit management, as well as voting rights. So we went to Kentucky State shortly after undergrad, received our master's degrees, and then that's when we moved to Georgia so that I could work on my PhD in political science at Clark Atlanta University, as well as I ended up attending ITC at Turner Theological Seminary, where I received the MDiv. And so that's me in a nutshell. So I served 9 years in the Georgia General Assembly. During that time, I served as chair of the Women's Caucus, chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, assistant deputy whip, and all of this I did during my tenure. I always served in a leadership position. I've always done that in every organization I'm in because I always lead from the front, and I'm also a good follower. But in order to lead, especially an organization or a division like Secretary of State's office, you have to know how to lead and how to make sure everyone has what they're needing in every individual office. Secretary of State office covers 5 divisions, which is elections, which everyone in the country is talking about elections. All eyes are on Georgia. And we know the wicked, crooked stuff they're doing in Georgia around voting, as well as corporations. If you own a business, you have to be incorporated by the Secretary of State. If you have a professional license, therapist, engineer, architect, massage therapist, Secretary of State's office. If you invest in the stock market, Secretary of State's office is over Security and Exchange. And if you have a nonprofit charity, it is also regulated by the Secretary of State's office. So it is a huge office, huge division. And I am D. Dr. Taylor, ready to do the job because I've served in every single role that the Secretary of State's office will cover.
All right now. All right, Dee, thank you so much. The last but not least, we have State Representative Shelley Hutchinson, who represents Snellville and Lawrenceville District. So Shelley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Cheryl. I really appreciate this invitation to be on Be the Now, and it is a great name. I'm Shelley Hutchinson, and I am state representative in Snellville. My current map has a lot of Lawrenceville and a little bit of Snellville, but the new maps that they just drew, I'll have all of Snellville and a little bit of Lawrenceville and some other little cities around. But I am a mom. I have 2 kids, both a wife. My husband and I just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary. And I am a business owner. I am a licensed clinical social worker. So Miss D. Dawkins Hagler will be issuing my licenses every year now. My business is mental health. It's a mental health outpatient treatment clinic, for lack of a better word. We just celebrate our 20th anniversary for my business in March. So I have been around for a minute. I started my career at DFACS. They sent me to UGA to get my social work master's degree, which in turn turned into my business. And in 2014, I won the Bulldog 100. I was the #1 business in 2014, and that was the fastest growing business owned by a UGA grad on the planet. So any UGA grad, I was the fastest growing one in 2014. So of course, no woman had ever won the award, no one of color had won that award, and definitely no social workers have ever won that award. So I was asked to be on the alumni board and teach at UGA and be involved in that way. And then in 2016, I woke up and Trump was president-elect. So I had to do some soul searching, and I did. And I said, okay, the guy who represents me has been in the office for 16 years without opposition. I'm going to sign up. I'm just going to give him some opposition. Did not think I would win. I won by 18 percentage points. So, and another reason I ran was my son is 19 now, but a few years ago in Gwinnett County, there was the young man who was handcuffed behind him and on the ground, and the police officer just ran in and just kicked him in the head just because. That was walking distance from my house. And I just could not, that was not sitting well with me at all, particularly with my son who was about to start driving. So got elected. I still have the business. It's actually running very well without me, which I have mixed feelings about. But I've been full-time in this so-called part-time job of state representative. I've been there for 4 years, and I can tell you it is an awful job to have. In the current climate, it is an awful job to have because there's only one set of ideas that control every aspect of government in Georgia. So even if you have a brilliant bill, if you're not on the right side of the aisle, that doesn't get any attention, any traction, and it certainly doesn't pass. So I am in it for the long haul. I feel like I see a light at the end of this tunnel. I definitely see some changes in governor and lieutenant governor with my good friend, Representative Derrick Jackson. And I'm sticking with it because I know once we get there, we have no bargaining chips right now. Once we at least have a bargaining chip like governor's office or the House, we have something to negotiate with. Right now, we just don't. So it feels like I'm there doing nothing because my hands are tied. All of our hands are tied. So that is why I'm sticking with it. I feel like I see the light, I'm working towards the light, and we're going to get it done. So thank you for having me, and thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for that, State Representative Hutchinson. You know, one of the things about Be the Now, our goal is to really motivate and educate the community to use the power of their vote to make a difference. And what we realize, there are a lot of people, sometimes they're hesitant to vote because they don't know simple things. They don't know like who to vote for. They don't know what each position means or represents. So like somebody may say, well, what does Lieutenant Governor do? What does a state representative do? So that's my next question is, and I'll start with State Representative Jackson again. What exactly are the duties of Lieutenant Governor?
Thank you, Cheryl, for the question. And there are many duties for the Lieutenant Governor, but I just want to give you three main ones because that's part of this mystery, is that this system is designed to try to saturate and hide information all at once. First and foremost, the Lieutenant Governor needs to be ready to become governor if need be, if the governor should become incapacitated or removed from office. That's the first role, which is the reason why in 1945, the state of Georgia created it. And the first lieutenant governor was filled in 1947. So there only have been 12 lieutenant governors. Think about that for a second, 12. And so that's the main reason why, because then that governor was feeling a little ill and they didn't have a contingency plan, and Georgia in this wisdom said, you know what, we need to have a lieutenant governor. And so it started in 1945. The second primary role for the lieutenant governor is to preside over the state senate. It goes to the point that my good friend, Representative Hutchinson, is talking about. When you have one of the, if not two or all three of the positions that we need to be able to process effective legislation, that's the governor, lieutenant governor, and the speaker in the House. Those are the three positions that Representative Hutchinson was really talking about when you talked about the overarching aspect of our legislative process. You get two of those three. Now, the ideal is for us to get all three positions filled by Democrats, right? But if you get two of those three, we can get things moving in the right direction for families. And so the lieutenant governor presides over the state senate. And then number three, the lieutenant governor appoints over 100 different positions from state agencies, committees, under the Gold Dome. That's important because if you got a lieutenant governor that understands that the appointment should not only be about who looks like you, right? It should be about replicating what America looks like. And so if there are 32% African Americans in Georgia, then these positions for state agencies and appointments should be 32%. Should be 32%, not like as my good friend Representative Donna McLeod state, that is always old, white, Caucasian men. That is not America. And so those are the main three. There's a plethora of others, but I know we're getting short on time. Those are the main threes that the lieutenant governor fulfill in terms of role and responsibility.
Thank you for that information. That's powerful right there. Very important. I'm going to ask State Representative Donna McLeod the same question in terms of her running for Congress for District 7.
Yes. So as with being a state legislator, the most important thing our government is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that encompasses your tax dollars, income tax, sales tax. And so whenever I say to people who tell me they're not in politics, you don't have to be in politics, but politics is the process in which we elect someone to govern. And it is what we do with your money that matters. So one of the biggest thing is how we actually fund departments in our branches of government. And do you get a return on that investment? And when you do pay taxes, you're paying for services, and you're hoping that the people that you elect will actually do things on your behalf and not for somebody else. And that's why you don't want a lot of money in government, because then you're obligated, the person that's elected is obligated to those people that they're getting this money from. And the only people they should be obligated to is the people that they serve. So at the end of the day, whenever I talk about, and it seems to resonate with people when I tell them about the fact that in the state of Georgia, 76% of the $30 billion come directly from income and sales tax, directly. Another 12% comes from paying services and fees. Not service, paying fees. So if you get pulled over by the police or your utility bills, those are all fees that you're paid, and that's part of it. And the last 12% come from businesses. And I would like everybody to know that 280,000 businesses in the state of Georgia do not pay taxes. And so it's important to understand how powerful taxpayers are. And I don't think anyone would pay the stock market and not expect a return on investment. Why would you pay taxes and not demand a return on investment and not demand accountability? Why would you just let people basically go into office and you don't hold them accountable, and then you don't get any services, and then people make you feel guilty about getting services? No, you should get your services. I absolutely demand, and I tell you with all my heart, you should demand that you get your services for the money you're paying. And anyone, even if you don't pay income tax, as long as you're paying sales tax, you are contributing to the fiber of our state and our federal government. And there is so many layering of government in this country that people need to understand that you're paying taxes at every layer, from your city council. If you live in a city limits, your county government, you're paying taxes. Your federal government, you're paying taxes. So we're contributing to fiber. And so I think that you should demand a return on investment and should always think of your tax dollars in that way. Demand that service.
Thank you so much, Representative McLeod. Thank you so much for that. Next, Representative D. Dawkins Kegler, I want to ask you the same question. What exactly are the duties of Secretary of State?
Thank you so much for that question, Sharon. I kind of answered it before a little bit, but let me explain a little bit deeper about those 5 divisions real quick. The one that everyone is talking about, no matter where you are in the country, is our elections. Everyone around the nation and around the world, because I travel the world a lot, they're like, what's going on in Georgia? Why are we trying to, you know what, it's still the South, and power never concede power without some type of demand. And so therefore the Secretary of State's office, with a little bit of duties they still have left, because God forbid, with these flips all flip, they're going to probably have a special session to limit the duties like they've already done, like removing the Secretary of State from being the chair of the State Election Board, which was a power grab. And so the elections are very important in the state of Georgia, because that's how everyone gets their voice out to the people, for you to vote for the person of your choice. I was telling Representative Jackson the other day, I can't wait for you to become lieutenant governor, so that whatever they have, you don't let nothing pass through. You just hold up everything. Just go in, just sit there all day, take roll, and just go home, because they're not going to do right. So to be flip those seats. So in the meantime, that's one division. Corporations is very important. When I ran in 2018, I talked a lot about having dedicated funds towards women and women-owned businesses, only because Georgia is 51% women. And I was the only woman running at the time, so I talked a lot about the fact that we should do more for women. As a result, the current Secretary of State now, Brad Raffensperger, created a division dealing with women, not a division, but a task force, dealing with providing resources to women who have businesses. This time, I have talked more about Black-owned businesses and how important it is for Georgia, with our over 1 million businesses in general, to make sure we have dedicated resources and training to our Georgia citizens to upscale their business, or to show them how to start a business, as well as professional licensing. I want us to be able to get people their professional license in a timely manner when it's time to renew. No one should have to go to the Secretary of State's office and feel like they're in some type of maze. And then who would change a website less than a month, like a month and a half before a major election, unless you want people to be confused. And if you ever tried to navigate, if you have a professional license and try to navigate that site, it will make you almost get a headache and want to quit and give up. But we can't do that. So Georgia shouldn't be just the number one place to do business, but it should also be a place where people can earn a living with their professional licenses. And we should have some type of reciprocity. If you're in another state and you come and say you're a nurse, you shouldn't have to go through all this red tape. It should be able to be used as soon as you get to the state of Georgia, as well as security. We need to be able to protect our investments in the stock market, make sure people are not being frauded through the system. And I want to also provide resources for people who want to learn how to invest in the stock market. We can easily do that, get people with specialties to come in, just talk about it, especially to our young people, how to invest in the stock market, as well as nonprofits and charities. I tell people all the time, if you go to a church, a lot of churches don't even register their churches through the Secretary of State's office or have them keep over their archives, the history of the church, and that's where it would be housed, in the Secretary of State's office. So there's so much education that I want to do in this position and in this role, and it's so vast that I feel like I'm the only one, as a matter of fact, I know it, that has the experience needed across the board, not just talking about voting rights, even though I am a voting rights expert. You got to have more than just talking about voting rights. And you've got to have had a job other than just trying to run your own charity. Your nonprofit. You have to have corporate American experience like I have. You have to have knowledge of the stock market, working in their various things and helping people start businesses. And I bring all of that to the table, as well as policy experience.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And last, again, but not least, State Representative Shelley Hutchinson, can you please discuss your duties as a state representative residing over Snellville and Lawrenceville?
Thank you, Cheryl. I sure will. So one thing, so I'm a state representative. We have 180 state representatives. We have 56 members in the Senate and the governor. Our only duty in the House is to pass a budget. Constitutionally, that's our only duty. Of course, we do much more, but that is the only thing that we absolutely have to do is pass a balanced budget. We also make changes to Georgia's laws. We can do it in the House, it can start in the House, or it can start in the Senate. And I can tell you thousands of bills are dropped every year. Most of us drop bills every year, even if we know that it's not gonna get heard or not gonna get discussed. Every year I drop a bill to ban Confederate monuments. Every year I drop, this year I did domestic violence. When in undocumented communities, if someone's a victim of domestic violence, they don't call the police because they're afraid that they ask for their status and they're ultimately deported. So I have a bill that said that women or victims, you can't check their status if you're reporting a domestic violence situation. My background is mental health. So I've made many bills regarding mental health. Two of which were in the giant omnibus big mental health bill that was passed this year by the speaker. But again, if you're not on the right side of the aisle, none of that you get credit for. And it's going back to the budget. Keep in mind that if you have only one set of ideas that control the House, the Senate, and the governor's office, when it comes time to do the budget, only certain people can walk into the speaker's office and ask for X amount of dollars for something in their communities. People who are close to the speaker or the lieutenant governor or the governor can walk in and say, I want this. We are not given appointments, much less get the type of carve-outs that some people get for their communities. So our communities suffer when we don't have a hand in this process. Mm-hmm. And right now, if there's a bill, if I create a bill, I created a bill to update Georgia's mental health manual. We refer to the mental health manual, which is the DSM, from the 1988 version. That is DSM-3. We are now on DSM-5. So I created a bill to update that. And it went through a committee. To get it called in a committee is one thing you have to work for. get it in a committee. Nobody had any questions. It's very straightforward. It costs no money. And it actually is going to give us the opportunity to, if we have DSM-3 on the books, we can't, that still has homosexuality, retardation. And if we have providers out there who's diagnosing people with homosexuality, we have no recourse because they're going off of DSM-3. I could not get that past committee stage. It goes from committee to the rules calendar, to the rules committee, and then the speaker picks which bills come out of rules to vote on the floor. And if that is voted favorably, it goes to the Senate and starts the whole process all over again. But you have to have those relationships everywhere. Right now, we're shut out. So that's why bills like the heartbeat bill, the 202, the voting rights bill, where I was at a church recently, and there was a group of women who went to the elderly who aren't mobile and helped them fill out their absentee ballot request. That is now illegal. They can't do that anymore. They have to find a family member to fill out that application. So these are all things that we fought against. And my colleagues on this call, my colleagues at the House, we fight. But that's all we can do is fight. We fight bad things. There's no collective bargaining or negotiations. Once we make more progress, because we've made a lot of progress. Georgia has made a lot of progress. I think that's our last piece to get our voices heard, is that we have some kind of say-so at the Capitol. Because if not, all of these crazy bills are going to keep coming up. I think they pick 1 or 2 or 3 every year that they know are controversial, and they focus on those things. And they start out with a whole bunch of craziness, and then they narrow it down as the session comes to a close. So that's how we got the trans sports bill. They added that to another bill, the CRT bill. They added it at 11:45 on our last day, where we're out at 12, where we're supposed to stop at midnight. They added it 11:45. They gave it to the Senate. The Senate didn't even have a copy of it. And they asked for a copy of it, and they denied them a copy of the bill that they were voting on. So, we can do great, great things. But right now, our ideals that we share are not being listened to at all. So that's why we're running for re-election, and that's why we are. All of my colleagues on this call have been fighters. We're justice warriors. But there comes a time where we have to stop fighting and start adding what we hold dear. We fought against the gun bill, the permitless carry. That is the most ridiculous thing ever. But we didn't have enough votes to vote that down, so it passed. So that's the position that we're in right now. So I can't do anything about zoning or local issues like that. But I did get a red light at the end of my street that was badly needed. But theoretically, the local stuff we can advocate for, but we don't have a vote in local things. But state law and the budget is what state representatives do, and Senate as well.
That's great information to know.
Yes. So I wanted to ask the question, as we mentioned earlier, Be the Now is a national organization, and I actually am here in Texas. And as many would say, all eyes are always on Texas, but I would say all eyes are always on Georgia. So we've got a lot going on in both states. We can fill in the blanks there with our imagination. But what I did want to know, for many folks that are on the Zoom that are not actually residing in Georgia, for all of our folks that are streaming on our other platforms, people that will be watching this later, what your positions, if any, have national implications, and also to speak with it from the aspect of a lay person, right? The average voter kind of understanding. I think you guys did a phenomenal job really explaining what those roles are. So everyone can kind of start to look for those things in their own states and elections. But for those of you guys that have any national implications in your position, if you could share those and what those may be.
Let's start with Derek.
So Coach K, I appreciate the question, and I'm sure I look forward to all my colleagues chiming in on this, because I'm just going to say these two things. Because you're right, when you look at states individually, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, etc., it really has a ripple effect across all of the states. Back when the Supreme Court removed the provision from the Voting Rights Act of 1965, for example, the pre-clearance, that put, Georgia was first, going back to, as it was already mentioned about Senate Bill 202, but 48 other states went after voting rights, right? And so yes, we can look at one state or a couple of states, but the Heritage Foundation, which is a Republican think tank, they have a machinery. Basically, they just duplicate these bills and they just proliferate them across the United States, going back to Representative Shelley Hutchinson's point, right? And so it just becomes a mill or part of, these 900 to 1,200 pieces of legislation that we have to deal with. The second thing, so voting rights is one example, Coach K, how it just goes across the nation. Now, here's the next one, abortion. They've been coming after women's bodies for centuries. White men want to control your bodies, and they've been trying to go after this forever. But in 1973, we have a settled law called Roe v. Wade, and that put a kibosh on it. So let us not kid ourselves that this slippage paper from the Supreme Court, right, saying that they're going to overturn, but this is something they've been working on for decades. Now they got the right number of votes on the Supreme Court to do what they want to do. And now you're going to start to see every state, state by state, go after women's rights. Listen, I'm going to be very clear, Coach K. As a father with 4 daughters and 3 sons, I want my 4 daughters to have the rights over their bodies as my 3 sons. Here in Georgia, there is 18 pieces of legislation that dictates the control of a woman's body. 18 already. 18. You know how many pieces of legislation that dictates a man's body in Georgia?
0. Yeah.
0. So what happens at the state level, it just becomes a duplication, if you will, of the Heritage Foundation, this Republican think tank. And so they try to start with all the southern states before they can try to move into those strong liberal states like California and New York. But let us not kid ourselves. We cannot lose sight of what the overarching thing that they're trying to do. And that is turn back the hands of time, flip democracy on its head, and put us all back to a place where they were completely in control and we had no voice.
Oh, thank you, Cyrus. I mean it. Did anyone else have something that was very well articulated? Thank you so much.
I'll say this. I'm sorry. You go ahead, Donna.
Thanks, Representative Hutchinson. This from the first year we went into legislative session in 2019. They tacked voting from the very first session we went into with creating a bill to, when we were demanding handwritten ballots, they brought in machines. And so we've been very acutely aware that Georgia was already edging towards, again, making voting more difficult. And as we know, this Voting Rights Act of 1965, it was not, African Americans didn't have an ability to vote. They had the ability to vote. What was happening at the state level was that they were changing the laws to make it more difficult. And so we saw that slippery slope already happening. And so Trump really just basically magnified the problem. And for me, and I've said this before, and I know Dee's is a champion for voting, but for me as a person who was not born in this country, who actually became a citizen of this country and read the Constitution, it is very, for me, a very keen part of it is that there is not a right to vote. And so when we start seeing them chipping away at voting, it's because it is the single most important ability or right in order to make everything else happen. Nothing else happens without it. And so even people that tell me they're in business, well, you can't help in a business in the state of Georgia without going through the Secretary of State who's elected official, right? And so I think it's so incumbent for us, especially as African Americans, to be very keenly aware as to why it is so important, why SB 202. And the part of SB 202, we talk about the drinking, not being able to give people food and water in the line. But for somebody to challenge your vote, anyone to challenge your vote is a problem. And the other issue with SB 202 is that the state can go into any county and take over that election. And so that is something that is, we don't talk enough about. It is dangerous. It's bordering on autocracy. It is not a republic, and it certainly will not be a representative democracy if we continue to chip away at voting. And because it's such a powerful part of how we actually create a society that all of us can in somewhat coexist, regardless of our color of skin, height, sex, gender, whatever, it is because we have to coexist together. And that means that people get a choice to determine how they actually will live. That is why we have to pay such attention to that particular right. And education for me, this state has claimed always that they've claimed the last 4 years that they've fully funded public schools with a 1985 formula. That is the most backwards, crazy thing I've ever heard in my life. How are you going to tell me you're fully funding public schools with a 1985 formula when almost all the counties have changed such drastically? So, I think everyone out there needs to understand there is a lot of stuff. We are at war because there's a bunch of people that fear change. And you know what? I can't worry about their problem. I can't worry about their fear of change because I'm going to keep moving. And we all got to stand together, and we've got to keep our eyes on the prize because we have come a long way, but we've got a long way to go. And the people that have done so much for us on our behalf, we truly do stand on the shoulders of giants. And we must never forget, when we walk into a room, walk with your head up high all the time. Never once put your head down, because it's never a good idea for them to ever see you beckon or weak, because that is what they want to see. And we've got to stay firm. Thank you.
State Representative Hutchinson, you had a comment. You're on mute. Ms. Jones, can you please unmute State Representative Hutchinson?
Thanks.
Okay.
So I was going to say, as far as how we affect the national level, and my good friend, the next lieutenant governor, has already kind of hinted to this, but when we pass a bill, like take, for example, the heartbeat bill. The heartbeat bill was squashed at the court level, but the same thing happened in Mississippi, and it wasn't. So it's moving through the court system, and it's gone all the way up to the Supreme Court. And this year we'll decide whether or not. Well, we won't decide. We'll hear this summer whether or not the Supreme Court's going to overrule it. But Roe versus Wade itself was a bill from Texas. And the same process happened, and it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And that's how we got it in 1973. And in addition to that, the things that we do, which is what our lieutenant governor was talking about, it has an effect on the rest of the country. So when Colorado legalized marijuana, they were the only ones. And now, little by little, more states have legalized it. And when we attempt to, that'll be our argument. All these states have done it already. We need to come on board and be progressive at least follow what the rest of the country is doing. So it does have an effect long term on national issues. I think, we will definitely see the marijuana issue again. And our argument will be, I can't teach my kids anything about marijuana if I have to tell them it's legal in this state, but not in that state, and legal in that state, and decriminalized here and not there. How do you raise your kids like that? It has to be uniform. So that is how we reach the national level. And vice versa. When the national level does something, then we have to conform to that. But each state has autonomy and can do it a little bit different than other neighboring states. So it works hand in hand, and it ultimately, well, this year just turns into a mess. So it is a mess that we certainly will be looking to correct very soon. Somebody told me it's hard not to get your morale down or up in the Capitol when you're in the minority. But a friend told me, a great friend, one of my elders said, anything that has been done can be undone. And that's going to be my theme at the Capitol next year. Everything that has been done can be undone, and I will be there to undo it. But it's going to take us a while just to undo the damage. And then we have to fight for the things that we want. So it's going to take a minute. Thanks, Cheryl.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Well, what I wanted to do was definitely thank you guys. I know we're coming up on the end of our hour. We do try to keep them to that, but we wanted to make sure that each of you guys that came on knew that we are wishing you some great campaigns and success for you and all your constituents. We appreciate you coming on this evening. It's definitely of interest for everyone, regardless of where you reside. I appreciate the comments for people to see the bigger picture and to kind of hear in more lay terms, because that is what will bring more people into the side of, I'm sorry, we do have one question, of voting, right? Where people can kind of get overwhelmed with the idea of politics as a whole. Really quickly, each of our state representatives have a wealth of knowledge and experience in the Georgia state, quote, system. If you are successful in winning your next political seat, how does the party hold your current seat in the House? And how do you get the new representative up to speed to play this game? If either of you would like to answer, or all of you. I do know, actually, I know for sake of time, Mr. Jackson has to leave shortly. So if you'd like to answer first, sir.
Thanks, Coach K, for the question. And
Mr. Rodney Neal, I'm sorry, is the question.
My brother Rodney. Okay. Listen, Rodney, this is real easy. What we need to do is build a baseline pipeline of us to get into politics, and then mentor them and get ready, then galvanize an energy of us to push not 12 or 18 candidates, but one. Identify our strongest candidate, build them and prepare them. See, because there's enough seats for all of us to participate. There's no seat regardless of level of government, should go unopposed, especially if they're held by someone that do not have our interests at heart. So city level, school board level, county level, state level, and federal level. What we don't do in the Black and brown community is build a bench and have those individuals ready and trained up and ready to go on day one. We got to start doing that. We can't be living in these seats until we're 80 and 90 years old and dying in these seats.
Right.
That's inefficient, ineffective, and it hurts us in the end.
Absolutely. That's well said. Thank you so much. I definitely want to jump before we go, just so that we can speak. I think is so many powerful things that were said tonight. A real good takeaway for me is that everything begins with the power, with the vote, right? Representative McLeod, thank you for that. So definitely we need to build a pipeline, but as we put you guys in, right, we've got to be voting to get that done, and then the cycle can start. But I'd like to talk very quickly about voting strategy. So I want to turn that back over to Mrs. Neal to talk very quickly about some voting strategies at the poll and get you guys geared up for our next forum that are going to speak just to that, as we have some very pivotal upcoming elections across the country.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kay. And again, I would like to thank each and every last one of you for joining the call. State Representative Donna McLeod, State Representative Jackson, State Representative Shelley Hutchison, State Representative D. Dawkins Hagler. Thank you all so much. And I'm praying that you all have successful campaigns. You all are extremely powerful, very knowledgeable, and we thank you. Real quickly, with that being said, and we always say it be the now, everything begins and ends with the vote. So thank you for that, Representative McLeod. Real quickly, for those of you who are looking to vote early in the state of Georgia, now there are several primaries going on all across the country. So those who are out of state, please look and see your deadlines on voting early. Here in the state of Georgia, you have until May 20th to vote. So we just put together a quick little, 6 steps on making sure that when you go to the poll to vote, that you have a pleasant experience. One of the things I always tell people is to double check your status to make sure that you are registered to vote. And sometimes, as my good friend Hank Stewart always says, they are purging people. So make sure that you are eligible to vote when you are heading to the polls. Then also check your polling location, because if you're voting early, your early voting polling location may not be the same as the election day polling location. So you need to double check that as well. Number 3, get a sample ballot if you can, and try to do some homework before you get to the polls, because there are a lot of different seats. I mean, I voted today, and there are a lot of judge seats on there, a lot of judge positions that some of them I wasn't aware of. I'll be the first to state that. We don't know everything here. We're still learning as well. And so I would say get a sample ballot and do your homework before you get to the polls. Number 4, we talked about Senate Bill 202. If you vote early, a lot of times you may not have long lines in the primaries. Election day voting, you may. So just make sure that you're prepared and you have snacks or water on your persons, just in case something goes wrong where all the machines may go down and you have to stay there for a while. Just make sure you are prepared for anything when you head to the polls. Also, once you cast your vote, just double check your answers to make sure that it's what you wanted, that whomever you voted for is on that sheet. Okay, once you turn it in, and then you go and you get your I voted sticker, make sure you call 5 to 10 of your friends and make sure they duplicate exactly what you did. We have to get everybody out to the polls. I don't care if it is the primaries. People need to know that they need to get out for these primaries. They need to know why they are voting for these individuals, because it's so important for us. So those are a few tips. If I forgot anything, please add it. Please let me know. Okay, Representative McLeod said visit her website at donnamcleod.org. Okay, Erica or Kay, because I can't always see the
.com.
Okay, .com. Please, each of the representatives put your information into the chat as well, so people can go to your site, learn more about you. You all did an amazing job breaking it down of your backgrounds, who you are and what you have done. So we really appreciate you for that. So now we are going to go ahead and close it out. Katie, you want to close it out? And then we'll bring back in DJ Grandman.
Yep. I'll close again. Thank you guys all for joining us, and I appreciate all of our esteemed guests. I was putting that in the chat as well for joining us. You can check out all of those tips. Along with some great information. Each representative has also put their social media handles, their websites, so you can get more information about them, their platforms. Stay connected with them, right? Hold them accountable if they are your candidate of choice, as that was mentioned as well. And also you can go to our site, www.bethenow.org, check your voter registration, get tips, get the same strategies that Ms. Neal went over this evening about getting to the polls, having a voter and a voting strategy. All right. Also, you can text Be the Now to the number 55469 to stay in the loop of what we are doing here. Our next events and new merchandise, how to donate, how to activate in your own communities, and much, much more. So that said, please do so you'll know about our next one coming up. And again, we appreciate you all. You can go on our social media handles at Be the Now on all social media handles. And you can also get a recording of this. So for you all that joined us tonight, some great sound bites, if you'd like to kind of clip it and repost it, because we're going to do that. So you might want to do it as well. You all had some very powerful, powerful notes tonight. So thank you again. And thank you all for joining. It says just paramountly about who you are in your own communities to be on this Monday night. So thank you so much. So I'll turn it back over to our DJ and we'll log off. Thank you guys.
I think we're having a little technical difficulties with DJ Grandman. But DJ Grandman, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? You're on your social media app.
You can find me on Instagram at DJ Grandman. You can find me on Facebook at DJ Grandman.
Okay,
that's about it there.
All right.
We appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and close it out. But one of the things we normally do, we start our program with the DJ and we end with the DJ, because we always say DJ is the heartbeat of our community. They have a lot of followers. So they listen to what we're talking about and then they share that information with their networks. And as we always close out, I would like to say, be educated, be engaged, be informed, and be the now. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.